Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers Video Forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Wold, Editor-in-Chief of Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers. Welcome to our video forum. Today, we're thrilled to have as our guest Steve Anderson, President and Chief Executive Officer of the National Association of Chain Drug Stores. Steve, great to have you back with us.
Jeff, always good to be with you.
Pharmacy and NACDS have had some good news of late on the front of PBM reform. We've seen part of that support come from the New York Times in the form of an in-depth report on PBM practices. After that article appeared, you said for government officials, this is a must-read, must-act piece. Why did you say that?
Yeah, Jeff, I viewed the New York Times article that appeared on a Sunday, very well read nationally. It's another display of the scrutiny of PBM practices and really the ongoing momentum to achieve much needed reform that we're working on. NACDS, as you very well know, has insisted that what is needed is an all branches and all levels of government approach to bringing about comprehensive reform. And that need is immediate. It needs to happen now. Before that New York Times article that you're referring to, NACDS, along with our pharmacy stakeholders, took the necessary steps to heighten the awareness. And we've been warning about the dangers of the PBM tactics for at least 12 years. And those warnings have proven to be correct and valid, and things are just continuing to get worse. And we need to fix this now. As you may recall, back in March of this year, NACDS hosted a press conference right outside the Capitol building as part of our NACDS RX Impact Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill. And we convened more than 300 pharmacy advocates, and it was an amazing day. It was very high energy. The sun was shining over the glistening white Capitol. There were white coats that with pharmacists flanking Senator Ron Wyden, the Democrat from Oregon, who is chairman of the Senate Finance Committee and the ranking Republican, the Republican from Idaho, Senator Mike Crapo, urging PBM reform. And I think the message delivered at that press conference really echoes the findings of that New York Times article and the Federal Trade Commission interim report that I know we're going to talk about today. We've been running our latest PBM reform ad with the title Time Is Now, and it features footage from the press conference. We are implementing a 7-figure ad buy, and it's running, that ad is running in the Washington, D.C. market and throughout the entire country in 23 targeted media markets of key members of Congress. So it's across 92 different television affiliates on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. So we've never engaged in we've done a lot of advertising, but this one was a really big buy. The New York Times piece, I think, did an extremely thorough job in reporting and continuing this message forward. The reporters conducted more than 300 interviews with current and former PBM employees, with patients, with physicians, with pharmacists, and other industry experts. And it was I found it to be an extensively researched article, and it was easy for people to understand. And I think it provides further validation, really, of what we've been saying all along. And so I think the New York Times article has helped to give this issue the attention it deserves. And I think it's important to keep in mind that the New York Times article that we've already seen was billed as the first in a series of articles. So there's more to come. And I also want to emphasize it was an incredible week we had that week. Not only did we have the New York Times article, but we then had front page articles in the Wall Street Journal on 2 consecutive days, which is like unheard of, where the the activities of PBMs were highlighted. And those two articles were about the interim report from the Federal Trade Commission, and then the reports that FTC is planning to sue the PBM industry. So I think the articles, those in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal were extremely high profile. They couldn't have been better timed. Yet, I want to remind you and your viewers that NACDS has been front and center in bringing these stories to the media for a long time. And frankly, I think it's that constant focus, that drumbeat that has really helped us bring this to the point we're at right now.
You mentioned a couple of things I want to follow up on.
Yeah.
You said you're targeting certain key members of Congress with your media efforts. Today, as we're doing this interview, there's going to be a House Oversight and Accountability Committee meeting focused on PBMs. What do you hope will come out of that?
Well, they're holding this meeting on Capitol Hill. It is the House Representatives Committee on Oversight and Investigations. They have been investigating PBMs for quite some time. And today they're having the heads of the three largest PBMs holding this hearing today. And we are urging the committee to be tenacious and not allow the PBMs to stick with their past answers, which have truly they're ring hollow in light of everything that has been brought to the attention of the American people on the PBM tactics. And we're urging the members of the committee not to allow the PBMs to pretend that there's no problem. There is a problem. It's faced by Americans every day, and we're making that case to Congress by sharing with them the articles that we just talked about. And also, I think it's important to stress that the pharmacy industry is totally united on PBM reform. We have submitted a statement for the hearing on the Oversight Committee, and it's NACDS, it's NCPA, it's APHA, it's the National Association of Specialty Pharmacy, the National Alliance of State Pharmacy Associations, the Independent Pharmacy Cooperative, and FMI, the Food Industry Association. And we're emphasizing to the House Oversight Committee hearing, what we're emphasizing really validates the forms that we have need in both in Medicare, Medicaid, and in the commercial markets. And to your question specifically, what we're asking for is Medicaid management pharmacy payment reform and a ban on spread pricing by requiring 100% pass-through to pharmacies of ingredient costs, and a professional dispensing fee could allow the federal government to save billions of dollars. We're working and telling the committee that we need to ensure fair and adequate Medicaid managed care pharmacy reimbursements from PBMs to cover the cost of acquiring and dispensing prescription drugs. We're also stressing requiring the national average drug acquisition cost survey participation to help establish benchmarks for Medicaid reimbursement to retail pharmacies that can be used to ensure fair reimbursements to pharmacy and Medicaid managed care and in the commercial markets. And there's other things we're asking them to do, but we're hopeful that the Congress will be moving forward on legislation after this hearing. We're well represented at that hearing.
You also referred to the interim FTC report, which is entitled Pharmacy Benefits Managers, the Powerful Middlemen Inflating Drug Costs and Squeezing Pharmacies. How does that square with the experience of your membership?
It squares very well. The FTC investigation of PBM reform is really putting the spotlight on the practices and exposing the anti-competitive nature in which the PBMs operate and the harmful results that are plaguing pharmacies and all Americans every day. For more than 2 years, the FTC has been studying the PBM's tactics. NACDS has served as a resource, and we provided insights into this important investigation throughout the last 2 years. NACDS has been very proactive in telling our story of the problems that have become more and more apparent. And to the FTC, we've outlined the impact of PBM misconduct on patients and pharmacies, and NACDS has emphasized the main areas of focus that serve as a foundation for the interim report. Specifically, NACDS continues to make it clear that PBMs are really the only unregulated player in the drug supply channel compared to manufacturers and plans and prescribers and pharmacists, which are all heavily regulated. PBM abuse of that privileged position and their extensive power have been used to manipulate the system to enrich themselves at the expense of patients, payers, and pharmacies. And I think in terms of what I think as we move forward, it's important to remember that this is just an interim report. As we move forward, we're going to hear more from the FTC on this issue.
As you read through the report and also through the Times story, are there any aspects of PBM practices that you feel need more attention than they received in those two sources?
So they didn't make specific recommendations, but it sets a stage for their final report, and it does amplify those reports that are key to comprehensive reform that serves as really the core of NACDS's priorities and our advocacy efforts. The recommendations in the final report, we think, can help address the concerns that NACDS has shared with the Commission. And they include creating greater transparency and accountability of PBM reform, promoting competition, increased transparency, predictability and stability of pharmacy reimbursement, and prevent patient steering and promote patient choice. And additionally, I think it's really equally important that it would be critical for FTC to include recommendations that enhance oversight and enforcement, encourage collaboration between regulatory bodies, policymakers, and industry stakeholders, and establish continuous monitoring to assess the evolving landscape of PBM practices. As you very well know, state officials have already begun to take necessary steps down this path to enact PBM reform at the state level. And on a parallel path, there are also regulatory actions CMS can take to further these efforts for comprehensive reform in Medicare and Medicaid. It was interesting when, after the report was issued by the FTC, Senator Ron Wyden said he was going to go to the mat to do everything he possibly could do to enact PBM reform. And we're getting really good bipartisan support on this issue. I mean, it's a very bipartisan issue. So we're optimistic when we hope the report comes out soon. But the PBMs are stonewalling. They are not part of the report. It was probably should come as no surprise that the PBMs are continuing to stonewall the FTC's investigation, and they're employing delaying tactics, and they still have not completed their required submissions. And I stress the word, they are required by law to do that.
What should NACDS and other pharmacy advocates do to build on the momentum that we currently have?
Well, we need to keep doing what we're doing. We've made unbelievable progress. It's been a long haul, but this really unites the entire industry. We are having many people contact our advocates are always every day contacting their members of the House and Senate. We've made great progress at the state level. We we've had more than 150 PBM reform laws enacted, not just introduced, but enacted into law over the last 3 years. Just last week, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who interestingly has been mentioned as a possible vice presidential Democratic nominee, signed into law a major PBM reform bill. And what we're also doing right now is we're advocating for legislation in Massachusetts. And we're really at an important moment in that fight. So our members have been extraordinary on this issue. We're working together. We're pulling out all the stops in our all level and all government aspect of what we're doing, and running very sophisticated media communications and public relations efforts in this fight that are really targeted at the few members of Congress who will be able to move this across the finish line, we hope.
In light of everything that we've been talking about this morning and the current unsettled state of our politics and the presidential campaign, are you more optimistic that we'll get PBM reform across the finish line soon?
Well, I'm always optimistic. I've been saying for many years anything can and usually does happen during an election year. I think the events of the last several weeks have truly borne that out. Prescription drug prices are a topic in every congressional campaign this year, in the Senate and for the House of Representatives. And everybody talks about reducing prescription drug prices. And there's no better issue to unite around is PBM reform. And hopefully we can get this done before the election, but if not, in a possible lame duck session when the political pressures are a little less on members of the House and Senate because the elections have passed. So we're optimistic. We're pulling out all stops as we always do. And I just want to thank everybody in this industry for everything they've done that's gotten us this far. As I said earlier, it was hard to communicate what a DIR fee was, what a PBM fee, what PBMs are. And, you know, the PBMs have created this opaqueness by design. Their tactics could not be understood. And we've been pulling a curtain back on that. And we're getting great bipartisan support, which is very unusual in this Congress. There are things getting done. And hopefully PBM reform would be one of those things that they'll get done this year.
Well, you've provided great leadership on this issue, and we hope your analysis is right. Steve, thanks for your time. Always great to talk with you.
Always great, Jeff. Thanks very much.